Director for Center for Academic Excellence, USM. Thank you, Prof. We also have Associate Professor Dr. Azida from Department of Higher Education Malaysia, and also former Director of Center for Academic Excellence of USM. So welcome back, both of you. Thank you so much for joining us today. I also would like to welcome all MICROCASA representative from all universities as consortium. I believe for the past 3 years, you have been working closely together, and this is toward the final conference where you know each other, and we want to see what's the result of MICROCASA. On behalf of University Science Malaysia, I'm honored to convey the USM Vice Chancellor a warm welcome and best wishes to everyone. Also, our Vice Chancellor, Professor Insinyur Dr. Abdul Rahman Muhammad, was not be able to be present here today. He extends his sincere hope that this conference will run smoothly, accomplish its objective, and foster fruitful collaboration among all the participants. This conference is especially meaningful to USM and particularly to the School of Distance Education as it coincides with its 55th anniversary celebration of the Distance Learning Programs or Rancangan Pengajian Jarak Jauh, a milestone that reflects our long-standing commitment to widening educational access through flexible, high-quality learning pathway. For your information, our School of Distance Education was launched back in 1971. So we have, our predecessor have already looking at different pathway to give opportunity to wider audience to access, get into pursue tertiary education. Ladies and gentlemen, the evolution, I'm happy to see Adam is also here from Open Learning. You've been very supportive on distance learning. And also I have another director of Center for Academic Excellence, the present director of Center for Academic Excellence, Associate Professor Dr. Samsul. Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. So this is how important this conference is to us. So all the key figures in academic excellence are here today to share and maybe to learn from MICROCASA. Ladies and gentlemen, the evolution of open and distance learning has shown us that when education is designed around learners, realize their time, location, career, and family responsibility, it becomes more inclusive and more impactful. In these spirits, micro-credentials have become a key tool to meet today's needs. They provide focused outcome-driven learning that support upscaling and reskilling, promote career mobility, and strengthen the link between education and employability in a rapid changing digital economy. The conference themes shaping the future of learning, micro-credentialing for sustainable skills and employability in Southeast Asia captures both the urgency and opportunity. Allow me to also share with you our initiative at University Science Malaysia. Recently, in Malaysian Higher Education Blueprint 2026-2035, that was launched by the Prime Minister of Malaysia, Yang Amat Berhormat Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim, the call for establishing academic bank credits to facilitate stackable degree or accumulation of skills throughout the life. So at USM, allow me to share that we already took the initiative starting from last year by establishing Credential, a new initiative at USM, and recently we launched it to strengthen flexible education pathway and Malaysia's micro-credential ecosystem. Credential serve as a centralized unit for managing, accrediting, and verifying micro-credentials that allow students to carry or to have a credit bands that allow them to transfer credit toward their different learning pathway. Ladies and gentlemen, over these 2 days, I hope that The program brings together key voices from educators, policymakers, researchers, industry leaders, and practitioners. We hope that the keynote session, including perspective on microlearning and teaching innovation, recognition and trust, legal and regulatory frameworks, and the development of Malaysia micro-credential session. We will also gain from panel discussion on regional policy, sustainability, and digital transformation on as micro-credential must be well designed, properly governed, and widely recognized to deliver value at scale. So allow me to acknowledge the strong international collaboration that underpin the initiative, as we are fortunate to be part of the consortium of MICROCASA that is co-funded by Erasmus Plus program of the European Union, reflecting a shared commitment and capacity building and cross-border cooperation in higher education. To all the delegates, I encourage you to make a full use of parallel session, poster exhibit, and also networking opportunity, and also take your time to enjoy Penang. Penang is so famous with food and scenery. So most importantly, I hope this platform will strengthen your partnership beyond MICROCASA, and maybe different projects or initiatives can be developed based on the partnership. So with that, I wish all of you productive and enriching conference. And once again, I welcome everyone to University Science Malaysia. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi.
Thank you very much, the Honorable Professor, Dato' Geospecialist Dr. Narima Samad, for the welcoming remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, we are honored to receive an opening speech from His Excellency Rafael Daur, Ambassador, Delegation of the European Union to Malaysia, via a pre-recorded video message. May we proceed with the video, please?
Good morning. Selamat sejahtera. Buongiorno, buenos dias, guten Morgen. Yang berbahagia Professor Dato' Dr. Narima Samad, Deputy Vice Chancellor, Academic and International, University Science Malaysia, distinguished guests, esteemed keynote speakers and panelists and representatives of other institutions, ladies and gentlemen. It is a pleasure to join you today for the opening of the MICROCASA International Conference 2026, hosted by University Science Malaysia in Penang. I would have loved to be here today in person. I'm very aware that this is what you probably hear often when people deliver a video recording, but I mean it. I was actually here in Penang 4 weeks ago to celebrate New Year. I will be again in Penang in 2 weeks, again to celebrate New Year and the beginning of Ramadan. And it would have been a pleasure to be here these days following the Thaipusam weekend, the weekend that I have spent here in Penang last year. So you see, I feel a bit like a Penang regular, and it would have been a pleasure to be here today. But alas, I'm traveling on my way to Sabah and was not able to join you. I'm nevertheless very pleased to see universities from Southeast Asia and the European Union countries partnering together in the education area for an initiative that seeks to have a tangible impact on addressing a range of economic and social challenges. Such cooperation demonstrates how higher education can serve as a bridge between regions and as a driver of inclusive growth and resilience. Across Europe and Southeast Asia, education systems are responding to rapid changes. Technological transformation, evolving labor markets, and a need for lifelong learning that is both inclusive and of high quality. Micro-credentials are increasingly recognized as one practical way to address these challenges by offering shorter, outcome-focused learning experiences that can support upskilling and reskilling and provide learners with more flexible pathways and opportunities. MICROCASA reflects a strong model of international collaboration, bringing together European and Southeast Asian partners to strengthen international capacity for micro-credentials, while at the same time encouraging dialogue on quality assurance, recognition, and trust. This project, supported by Erasmus Plus, reflects the European Union's offer to Malaysia and the region an offer of partnership, one that is about delivering benefits to all sides and about very concrete gains for our counterparts in Southeast Asia and ultimately for the people in the region. At the heart of this cooperation is our shared commitment to promoting people-to-people contacts, exchanges among professionals, and interlinkages that enrich us all. Through such engagement, we deepen mutual understanding, build trust, and create networks that extend well beyond individual projects or conferences. I'm very happy to see that this conference brings together a wide range of practitioners, including some that can share their experiences from other EU initiatives, such as our SCOPE higher education program in the ASEAN region. SCOPE HE, SCOPE Higher Education, fosters the movement of students and academics between ASEAN and the EU, for instance, by providing grants for higher education clusters, fostering academic connectivity. Yang Berbahagia, Professor Dr. Naimar Samad, represent one such research cluster between 6 universities from Spain, Greece, the Philippines, and 2 from Malaysia, University Science Malaysia and University Utara Malaysia, one that addresses the risks of natural hazards. Now, this conference theme, Shaping the Future of Learning, Micro-Credentialing for Sustainable Skills and Employability in Southeast Asia, is both timely and ambitious. It reminds us that micro-credentials must not be viewed as isolationist innovations, but as part of a broader learning ecosystem, one that requires credible standards, transparent governance, and recognition mechanisms that are meaningful to employers and learners. Now, over the next 2 days, you will hear expert perspectives through keynote and panel sessions, and practical evidence through parallel sessions and poster presentations. And I encourage you to use this opportunity to exchange your experiences openly, to identify areas where regional cooperation can deepen, and to strengthen partnerships that will endure and last beyond this very conference. Now, I'm mindful that a video recording does not represent in any way or live up to personal presence, but I nevertheless wanted to be here virtually, at least, with you today for 3 reasons. First, because I believe that education is important, that nothing is more important than education. Secondly, because I believe that cooperation, also cooperation among our regions, is of crucial importance, in particular in the field of education. And thirdly, because I wanted to underline and affirm our support as co-funder of the MICROCASA project and highlight the EU's continued commitment to higher education cooperation and skills development in and with Malaysia, in and with the region, with ASEAN. With that, it is my honor to officiate the opening of the MICROCASA International Conference 2026. I wish you all a successful conference and fruitful discussions. Thank you very much. Terima kasih.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for the inspiring message and continued support. To set the tone for the conference, please enjoy a short video montage highlighting MICROCASA and our shared journey. Thank you. We will now proceed with the presentation of token of appreciation. May I invite the Honorable Professor, Geospecialist Dr. Narima Samad and all the distinguished guests, please rise and remain on the stage. First, may I invite Professor Armin Weinberger from University of Saarland, the keynote speaker, to receive the token of appreciation from the Honorable Professor Dr. Narima. Next, may I invite Madam Chiara Finocchiati from Simia Neri to the stage. May I invite Professor Carlos Delgado Cruz from Universidad Carlos III de Madrid to the stage. May I invite Professor Anilo Meroni, Università from Europea di Roma, keynote speaker, to the stage. May I invite Professor Dr. Abdul Karim Alias from University Tenaga Nasional, the fifth keynote speaker, to the stage. Finally, may I invite Mr. Adam Brimo from Open Learning, Industry Talk speaker, to the stage. Thank you, Professor Dato. Please remain on the stage. Now, may I invite Professor Armin Weinberger to present a token of appreciation to the Honorable Professor Dato Geospecialist Dr. Narima Samad. Thank you to all our distinguished guests. We will now proceed with the official group photo. May I request our distinguished guests, keynote speakers, and all the participants to please move to the middle of the hall, guided by the ushers. First, for those at the right and left side of the hall, please proceed to join those at the middle of the hall to be in the frame. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the opening ceremony of MICROCASA International Conference 2026. And I would like to extend my gratitude to the Honorable Professor Dato Geospecialist Dr. Narima Samad, Deputy Vice Chancellor, Academic and International, University Science Malaysia, and all our guests. Thank you.
Wonderful. Yes.
Kindly return to your seat as we will begin the next session, first keynotes as scheduled. Thank you.
Oh, here I am. It's kind of... Should I check? Should I try? Let's take out again. Now we don't share the other thing, but it's okay. Should I share my slide? Okay, Assalamualaikum, salam sejahtera, very good morning. Once again, thank you very much to all for attending MICROCASA conference today. So we will be proceeding with our keynote, the first keynote of the conference. So before we proceed with the speaker, allow me to introduce. So it is my great pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Professor Dr. Armin Weinberger, head and founder of EduTech Department at Saarland University, Germany. So he is a leading international scholar in educational technology with contribution in technology-enhanced learning, computer-supported collaborative learning, argumentative knowledge construction, and cross-cultural education. So he is widely recognized for both his research excellence as well as academic leadership. He received multiple prestigious awards, including Bavarian Award for Good Teaching, the AECT Award for Outstanding Journal Article, Top Cited Article Award in Learning and Instruction. Furthermore, he is also the most productive author in the International Journal of Computer-Supported Collaborative Learning over several consecutive years. So beyond his scholarly work, Professor Weinberger has played a central role in shaping the global learning sciences community. He founded and coordinated key international research network, served on the board of European Association of Research on Learning and Instruction, and currently serve as its vice president. So we are honored to have him with us today and to share his insight on the future of education, technology, and collaborative learning. With that, please welcome Professor Armin Weinberger.
Yeah, thank you very much for these kind words. Dear friends and colleagues, ladies and gentlemen from near and afar, I want to talk a little bit about the university of the future. And I think that this conference and microlearning, micro-credentials might be an important building block for that. But before talking about the future, I think we need to talk about the past and how the idea of university came to be. And that was actually in the Middle Ages, which are the so-called Dark Ages. But so-called because they were not really so dark. The Middle Ages were actually a quite interesting time. A time of rebirth, a time of also the Islamic golden age, where some say the first university was founded in places like Fez and so on, but it's disputable, and I cannot talk so much about that, but I can talk, and I hope you forgive me for that, I can talk about the European perspective and the European history, and that's what I want to share with you, because what would I know about other places? So let me share this history of the European side of how universities came to be, because indeed the first time the word university was used was then in the European continent. And how did that go about? So the idea university actually was kind of firstly mentioned in Italy, and in the place of Bologna. You can see here this map of the oldest still running universities and their founding year. And what happened in Italy at that time was very interesting, because young people were going to Italy, and you may wonder why were they going to Italy? Because of the spaghetti and the pizza, or because the weather is so nice, or because the people are so beautiful? Yes, also, but there was another reason. These young people wanted to make a living, a better future for themselves and for their societies through education. Because in this, difficult time of change, people thought that a way to better live is to have a system, a society that is ruled by law, not by, power and force and strength, but by law, with people being equal. And at that time, there was a rediscovery of the Roman law from Justinian. And where to better study that Roman law and distribute it across Europe than in Italy itself? So young people came to Bologna, for instance, and were trying to get an education, trying to find a scholar who could teach them how to interpret the Roman law and to spread it in Europe, to make a better world. Now, imagine being in a different place, a different country, you don't know how to communicate well, you don't speak the language properly, you don't know whom to talk to. People might be misusing you. You have to pay the bigger prices for your rent and so on. You're lost. You're in a foreign place. It's not easy, isn't it? So what happened then was that people indeed had difficulties to get that education that they so drastically searched for. And what they did then was a very modern solution. A very interesting idea. What they did, these outcasts that had no protection, they banded together. They came together in a group and said, let's seek a scholar together. And let's together make a contract with that scholar to teach us properly, accountable, trustfully, to not let the scholar leave the room before he has not actually taught us enough. Yeah? They regulated how much time to spend with a scholar. Imagine students today asking the scholar not to leave the room. Yeah? But at that time, yes, they wanted a proper education. So, and this is how they actually arrived at a better education. And when then they collaborated with students from other disciplines, they decided to call themselves universitas, the all-encompassing, the universal, not only law, but also art, theology, medicine. That's when they came together and said, we are universitas. We cover all of the disciplines and we're strong together. So who founded the university? Students did. So now we are in university in a place that was originally conceived by students. It was not the building that was a university. It was an idea of staying together, of being together. Of course, universities assigned then to the scholar that was important and was okay, but it was actually the students founding the university. We're here for the students. So, and this, I would say, is exactly what micro-credentials are about. To arrive at a trusted, accountable, recognized, mobile kind of education that is certified. Now, as you can see on this map, this idea was a success. It was a winner. It spread across Europe. And my university at Saarland University, which is where France is sticking its nose into Germany, Saarland is right on top, very small place. This university was founded in the 20th century, so very recent actually. So it was, until today, a very good model, a good thing for society. No modern society could afford to be without a university. And still today, universities are a success factor for any society. But of course, throughout the centuries, what is a university has changed, right? It's not so revolutionary anymore. It has become an institution. And when you're becoming an institution, things are changing, right? There's some trade-off. When things are being institutionalized, there's more bureaucracy, and the original ideas that are all very good may also, become a little bit inert, a little bit losing the actual spirit. You're dealing more with formalities and such, right? And that also shows in teaching, as you can see here on this painting. This was also in Bologna, by the way. A couple of years later, 50 years or so later, the lecturer is a German, Heinrich the German, Henry the German. And you can see some things that are still true today. For instance, you can see the lecturer reading from a book. I'm reading from my well, I'm not reading from the laptop, but still there is some source of knowledge in a way. Then the lecturer is a man who is a bit old, has a white beard, so, you know, stereotype. And that lecturer is hopefully very enthusiastic and still reaching like the first row of the lecture hall. And people there in the first row, they are still very interested, listening carefully, reading along, and so on. The second row, already some problems, people interested in other things as well, talking with their neighbors. The last two rows, total disaster. Everyone's looking elsewhere, dealing with other things, not so interested anymore. And this guy takes the cake by sleeping because he was probably having a great party the night before. So this is something that was true some, how long ago? 800 years ago, maybe still true today. So anyway, there is maybe a cost of universities' institutionalization, even though that might be still a good idea. And it's still, the basics are still true of what students want from university. In medieval time, they wanted to have a certificate that builds on trust, accountability, recognition, that is portable, that can take along. And that, I think, is very true today as well with micro-credentials. It's also about trust, accountability, recognition, and mobility. So that is still true. The basis is still true, what the university is there for, at least from a student's perspective. But then what? Yeah, of course, the spread throughout the centuries was then something that kings and queens, rulers of the world supported, and of course moved a little bit away from this more or less revolutionary idea and trying to exert control. Why is this maybe not working so well anymore? Because we're living at exponential times, and you may have heard of that, right? There is the former US Secretary of Education who basically said we are preparing students for something we don't even know what for, because the world is changing so quickly that by the time the students get their certificate, they're not prepared for the world they're entering, because they have been prepared for the world of the past, in a sense, right? And one big accelerator of these times is, of course, the computer, is then the internet, and now, of course, is artificial intelligence. So these are all things that contribute to reducing the half-life of the skills that we're teaching. So we're in a bit of a problematic situation here. Are we still true to the needs of the students and society when teaching them, when the skills are passing us by so very quickly? And this is a real challenge. Now, one perspective, of course, is to say, well, the university is teaching fundamental things, macro learning, if you like. And so this is true forever, whereas micro learning is more or less focused on marketable local skills. And it's either or, you cannot have both. But I think this is not a true dichotomy, it's a false dichotomy. When I was growing up, we were having a cat, right? And we loved that cat, so I'm a cat person, right? That's what I thought. But then later I found, wait a second, I actually also like dogs. So what am I now? It's a false dichotomy. It's not cats or dogs, but it's really you like animals. That's what this is about. So there are dichotomies that may be true, but then there are also false dichotomies. And I would suggest that macro learning, if you like to call it like this traditional university teaching of large programs where people are not only learning some kind of local skills, but are being socialized into being whatever they're learning, right? Some psychology student becoming a psychologist, some medicine student becoming a physician or a surgeon, and so on. But that this can go well together with then micro-learning as well, with very local skills. And actually, the mix of both things is what where the magic is at, so to speak. So bear with me and be careful about false dichotomies to go this way or that way, not necessarily a fork in the path, but actually interesting to combine both. And one person who spoke about false dichotomies in academia is a guy called Donald Stokes. I don't know if you know this book, was probably lots of you will know, Pasteur's Quadrant. And Stokes was basically addressing a false dichotomy. The false dichotomy between basic science and applied science. Because people were saying, well, there's basic science or applied science. You have to make a choice. But Stokes said, no, this is a false dichotomy. It's not one continuum with theory being on one end and practice being on the other hand. No, these are two independent dimensions. So actually there is a space of theory being one quality criterion and practice orientation being another criterion. So this space then can be distributed into 4 quadrants. And these 4 quadrants have different levels of theory orientation and practice orientation. Let me give you examples, or let me retell you the examples that Stokes gave. One example of a highly theory-oriented person, scientist, was Bohr. Bohr was not interested in the application side of what he was investigating. He wanted to know, how is the world? What keeps the world together in the very micro level, on the atomic level? He created the atomic model. Of course, the application of that being tremendous, but he didn't care about that. That came later, right? Now, who's an example for an application-oriented only perspective? Of course, famously, Edison. Edison did not care about how and why things are working. He was just interested, are things working? He made lots of money with innovation. I had the pleasure to visit his workshop or factory in Florida. It was interesting. It was interesting. It was really like a factory, and he was pushing scientists very hard just to produce patents that could be marketed. And Edison managed to electrify the United States of America. He became very rich, deep pockets, lots of money, was not interested in how things are working really. But the number of patents that were produced in this workshop is amazing, really amazing, not interested in theory at all. And then, of course, there is sound. Okay, here we are. Then, of course, there's a quadrant that shouldn't even exist, neither theory-oriented nor application-oriented. That's absolutely useless. Be careful. You don't want to go there. Myth, rumors, tinkering around, not really knowing what you're doing. That's not where you want to be. But what's the 4th quadrant? Well, you've guessed it. The book is called Pasteur's Quadrant. That's where Pasteur is of course located. Pasteur, you know him probably from a thing called pasteurization. Pasteur is the guy who invented it. What was going on with Pasteur? Pasteur had a friend, and this friend had a milk factory. And the friend was saying, I could make so much more money if the milk wouldn't turn bad so very quickly. But, you know, I'm using ice, but then the ice is melting because there was no fridge at that time. So the ice is melting. I can only reach so many customers. I would have much more capacity, but I cannot reach them. So if only the milk could be made more endurable. And so Pasteur said, oh, this is interesting. I'm going to, first of all, systematically identify why is the milk turning bad? Why is the milk turning sour? And he found little creatures swimming in the milk on a micro level, bacteria that turn the milk sour. So he said, okay, that's the reason why milk is turning sour. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to try to kill these bacteria. And he did, with heating it up very quickly. And that's what pasteurization is. And that's why we're drinking milk today that is not sour. Yeah? So that's use-inspired basic research. Use inspiration, there's a real-world problem, and there is basic research methods that I can apply to systematically identify the problem, to systematically address the problem. So that is a way of combining this theory and practice orientation that I think is very fruitful. Now the question obviously is, could this not also be a model for teaching, use-inspired teaching? And I think it could be, because universities is not a pyramid scheme. We're producing people that then could teach again and be again professors and so on. But the truth is, of course, most of the students are actually going out, make a living outside of academia. That's just the reality. And also complex real-world problems, they demand, of course, a profound conceptual understanding, what you're learning in university, but they also require skills of shooting the trouble, of applying the knowledge. That's something else, actually. That's an additional skill. You can maybe recitate theories and so on, but if you cannot apply them, then you're missing a skill to solving problems. So there is an additional level, and typically students are left alone with the second step of actually applying knowledge. And that's why everything people are learning is then forgotten very quickly. But there is a real need to also apply the complex, the profound conceptual understanding. And of course, on the other hand, competence to solve problems is of course building on knowledge. It's not tinkering around. You have an idea, you have assumptions that are founded in something that you know, to address a problem. So, university education, if I may, this is how I conceptualize what university education is aiming for. I think it's aiming for solving, well, for graduates being able and willing to solve real-world problems based on an understanding, not only recall of concepts. Not only, I remember this, but I understand it really. I believe it means graduates should be able to participate in discourse in their disciplines. They should be able to take a stance after leaving universities and saying, this is my educated understanding and my educated perspective on things, and continue to think along in their discipline. They should share their knowledge confidently. Of course, us in academia, we are in the habit of sharing our knowledge confidently. But for people that are leaving universities, they should be also sharing their knowledge in their respective contexts. That's what they have been educated for. That's what their purpose is in society. So they should be truthful and not just hide behind their certificate and their technical language. And of course, they should continue to think scientifically, to apply scrutiny to their practices. Right. So what is then Pasteur-inspired teaching? Well, if you again follow these quadrants, then I guess Bohr-like teaching would be more traditional in saying, okay, let's focus on the concepts first. And Addison-like teaching would be focusing on very local skills. And the problem with that might be that these local skills are changing very quickly. So I don't know how many operating systems you have learned in your life, how many different types of software versions you have learned in your life. But like every 2 years, there's a new thing coming up. So to learn one system is not enough. You have to learn how to learn and to be prepared for the change in the future as well. So that's why education, Addison-like teaching is also not enough in that sense, even though the students may want it. But then, yeah, this quadrant that shouldn't even exist, let's skip that. But then the Pasteur-like teaching, I think, should be characterized by authentic problems in need of concepts and application. Complex real-world problems, we have enough in our world today. So I think there is a real need to address them with all seriousness and in a founded manner. So use-inspired teaching, again, let me sum up. Authentic teaching and tasks in real context and being provided with feedback in the respective forms. Enablers for such a new university of the future are, I think, micro-credentials, and you will hear lots more about micro-credentials. I'm not going too deeply into that actually, because the whole conference is for that. And of course, one big elephant in the room is not me, even though it might be, but it's AI, of course. And there will be also talk about AI in education a bit. And that would be a completely different talk, and I could talk, but rather not. And there are even people here that could tell even more. But let me quickly focus maybe on two more enablers that maybe will not be covered so much, and it is smaller things, learning nuggets. One is OER, open educational resources and open educational practices, and micro-learning. And what is that? So let me shamelessly plug another project, which I'm dealing with in Europe, that is on OpenTeach, that is about open educational resources. Open educational resources are free. They are copyright compliant, so you don't have to worry if you're violating rights. You just have to reference them, that's all. And they are also high quality. Wikipedia is also an open source kind of approach, and it's also high quality. OERs also high quality material for teaching and learning that is available on respective platforms, so such as the OpenTeach C Hub, which then also allows knowledge co-creation and co-design of such open educational resources. So there is material out there. And in the interest of time, I'm hurrying up a little bit. Micro-learning in a similar fashion, learning nuggets, little learning experience that are not kind of taking weeks and months, but are rather 5 to 10 minutes experience. You know, these learning apps that you're using on a mobile device, they're all not necessarily always good in terms from a pedagogical perspective, but it's better to learn with your mobile phone than to play a game maybe. And the interesting thing here, it's only about testing and being provided with feedback, solving little tasks to then step ahead and to acquire some application-oriented knowledge. And well, the whole message of this talk is to say, let's give up this false dichotomy. Micro and macro learning can be living in harmony, because even big educational goals start with small first steps. So micro-credentials are a way forward and are a way to also develop the university towards new competencies, new audiences, new markets as well as they are interesting for students to acquire specific personal skills. Let me maybe recap that. So for the institution, there is through OER, through micro-learning scenarios, there is reusable material that can be used and reused in different contexts. There are new possibilities for partnerships, also outside of university, which is a very interesting concept. Difficult to attain, of course, because of business working a little bit differently than universities or public institutions, but an interesting opportunity for new business models, also to reach out to alumni and to re-educate after people have left universities, or for people who didn't have the chance yet to go to university, but now still need the skills, for instance, to work with AI in their respective jobs. And on an individual level, students are interested to then find a job with their degree, and then employability becomes important and can be warranted or, well, facilitated with then micro-credentials respectively. Feedback is, of course, as I said, an interesting aspect of micro-learning then, and something students would be interested as well to very quickly receive feedback that is informative and puts them on the way, and people knowing what to expect and what the outcomes are. And this is, of course, where the MICROCASA project is located at, which I'm having the pleasure to coordinate. And we're doing a couple of things, as you can see here, maybe to pick out one thing in particular. We're also developing institutional development plans that kind of map out the development of universities. The MICROCASA consortium consists of European partners and Southeast Asian partners in the Philippines, Indonesia, and of course here in beautiful Malaysia. And these are the people that we're talking about. These are the consortium representatives. Of course, the true size is a little larger than that, but just the main representatives. And for instance, you can also download our products, our deliverables, and I would kindly suggest that to you to look at what we are producing, for instance, in terms of these institutional development plans that provide a template or an example, a good practice of how then universities as an institution can develop towards a micro-credential policy. For instance, having this overview to plan, to provide faculty training, to do initial pilot courses, and then to expand, seek collaboration with industry, and then arrive in a couple of years to a fully integration of micro-credentials. And we have within the consortium also examples for doing that. So this is kind of like the way to implementation. And I, in the interest of time, might be just moving on to what you would be arriving at. Of course, you needed to always assure quality. And that is not only, strangely enough, not only just learning, do people learn, but also are there real world impacts? Are the students, for instance, getting a job quicker with micro-credentials than without? So these kind of measurable outcomes needed to be taken into account. Equity is one concern, and of course the iterative assessment and review of the micro-credentials, another one, always with academic integrity and clear ownership of students having the respective competencies as certified by such a micro-credentials. So allow me to kindly call to action with 3 tips: small steps, design for trust, and scale what works. Identify, first of all, what is the pastoral problem? What is the real world skill that you want to cover with micro-credentials? Hint, AI, for instance. Yeah, everyone now is facing how to productively work with AI. That could be a good example, for instance. Then pilot micro courses, build then a cross-functional team. Yeah, you need to seek support, and quite frankly, the support also needs to come from above. Yes, so you cannot create a policy only bottom up. That's not possible. You need eventually to have the support of the presidents. You can do a lot bottom up and try things out in pilot stage, but when it comes to scaling up, that is the time, the latest actually, when you also need official support, I think, right? So then talk about it. Look at us doing it right now. Talk about, disseminate, share the experiences and see that it works. And then again, enter into this circle, this iteration of evaluation, stacking it into pathways. Right. Good. So coming to the last slide and trying to sum up, trying to see in front of my inner eye the university of the future and suggesting what it is like. The university, as we have learned today, is not a building. It's not a building. It's a practice, a joint practice, and it's a platform. It's a hub for innovation that is about knowledge, practice, and public value. It allows for a combination of macro and micro learning, of this profound, serious knowledge that is building on theory and evidence. I'm not giving that away because I like it so much. Sorry, I'm a bit old-fashioned there. But let's realize in the world that we are thinking together in distributed systems where we would be using tools, and we need to also know how to use these tools. It's a part of our way of thinking. Use-inspired teaching is then the idea to address real-world problems, to work in a problem-oriented fashion, and to see how learners connect the dots between the theoretical, conceptual knowledge and the real-world problems and applying this knowledge. Building recognized coherent pathways, micro-learning, micro-credentials, recognized capstones, putting that into the student journey systematically. And of course, having students that are being certified, to having the things written down in the transcript, showing their actual expertise that they have acquired throughout time in a lifelong learning knowledge society that allows a stronger permeability, that invites alumni back in to make the university not an institution that is doing as it's always done, but to make it alive, a real knowledge hub for society. And that is very important. Otherwise, university will be dying. That's my perspective. On a sad note, I will end this. I'm sorry, but change is really what keeps us alive. Change is keeping us true to our actual goals. And with that, I look into the future, and I really thank you for your attention. Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much, Professor, for introducing to us today pasture quadrant, something that we can incorporate in our teaching. So thank you once again. Let's give a warm, strong clap to our first keynote speaker. So our next session is networking break and poster exhibition. Before I let you guys go,